You never know where the news cycle is going to take you in this town. Good morning. It is great to be here on KCMO Talk Radio, and we are always appreciative of the time that he sets aside every week from the mayor of Kansas City. Quinton Lucas is here. Mr. Mayor, good morning. How are you? Thanks for joining us on KCMO.
Good morning. It is great to be back on KCMO. Good to talk to everybody.
All right. Well, hey, I just want to kind of clear the air on this whole deal, on this children's book that has gone viral over the last couple of days. You're well aware of it. You addressed it briefly yesterday on social media. It's multiple members from the city council, including yourself, reading a book about a transgender teddy bear on Read Across America Week. Who is the brainchild of this, and who is the person who kind of put this idea together?
I will always let the buck stop with me at City Hall, so you can blame the mayor of Kansas City. The way something like this usually happens, and the way it happened for me is somebody says it's Read Across America Week. There's a book selected. I sat down and read it. A bunch of other people did. And, my view of the world is I've got 99 problems, but a book ain't one. And so it's really about supporting reading. The way that I have always thought of speech, and the conservatives that I grew up around thought of speech, although it seems to have changed, is that you don't actually censor types of speech. Instead, you combat it with other types of speech. So I imagine if folks like some of the Missouri statewide politicians and others have books they want to read, some of which I've likely read, they are more than welcome to have a Read Across America Week. I would welcome a Bible scripture and Read Across America. I myself often read it, any other number of things. But, I don't know why people get all up in arms, but, it is what it is.
Yeah. Of all the great kids books, you got little kids, I got little kids, all the great kids books out there. Why the book about the transgender teddy bear?
I think that however that book was selected, it is one that someone felt could be a positive message for a kid or any sets of kids or adults, really, in Kansas City. So, I don't quibble with it. Usually when I go visit schools, I actually, this may surprise you, never select the book that's read. So if I ever come to your kid's school, don't be concerned. Usually it's teachers or administrators and others. I let folks make that choice. I just happen to be always delighted to lend my voice to reading in our country, something that more and more people, frankly, need to do.
Well, I agree with that. What's your favorite book to read to your son?
There are a few books that are my favorites. I mean, Goodnight Moon, I have memorized, so that makes
Classic.
it a little bit easier, right? We have another one about, I think, zoo creatures going to sleep, so that's kind of fun. And then a latest classic is like about a tiny little house and all types of things. But Go Dog Go, some Dr. Seuss, all types of stuff. And by the way, I hear Dr. Seuss is controversial to some people. I mean, I don't know. Well, I just read stuff, and usually, my kid's okay with it.
Listen, you're answering the question exactly how I thought you would, and that's why I sit here and I say, you're not afraid of controversy, but, listen, Donald Trump, sometimes avoiding controversy is the best thing to do. Donald Trump needs that advice as well as anybody. Like, why put yourself in a spot where it's like, now I got to sit here and I got to get crap because I got to read this book, and half the city's not going to like it. So, why put yourself in that spot?
What I would say is, I'm the mayor of Kansas City. This is the book that was read. I'm proud to read the book. And what I always try to do when reading is support, first of all, reading broadly. I take your point, and I get it. I don't own that book personally myself. That being said, I'm always happy to read for audiences and to let everyone know that they're appreciated and loved in Kansas City, and that means absolutely everyone.
Mayor Quinton Lucas is joining us on KCMO for his Thursday morning conversation. Take me through, we're 3.5 weeks or so until the vote comes down in Jackson County for, of course, the 3/8 cent sales tax. And man, the blowback on this is really more than I expected, maybe more than you expected. But as you sit here 3.5 weeks out, you have said on this show that, you think that this can be very good for Kansas City. But you're not maybe officially endorsing it yet. Has that changed over the last several days for you?
No, it has not. I mean, I think that I see on the ground what you see on the ground. And there are a few truths that I always like to share with people. The Kansas City Royals will not be playing at Kauffman Stadium after 2031. Full stop. And I think that downtown would be an outstanding location for the Royals to play. I think it's the best one in the Metro, and it's the one that actually, if you're looking at long-term benefit both for the region and the team itself, is the thing that makes sense. A few things, however, are also truths. The Kansas City Royals have in their renderings put out a footprint that I think, frankly, maybe leaves some things to be desired. I think that there are people that don't necessarily want them to cross Oak Street. I've expressed similar issues and concerns. I think there are people that have concerns with some of the local businesses impacted. I think those are things that should have been taken care of already, or at least are taken care of incredibly quickly. They still have not. And I know Kansas City, and I know Kansas City somewhat well. And actually, I thought, before a few days ago, this would be the majority of our chat this week. But in knowing Kansas City like you do, people like small businesses. And people also like the Royals. They like our downtown resurgence, but they may, want to say, wait a minute, how do we make sure that everybody can win in this? And I still think this is an arrangement where everybody can win for whatever reason. However, we are not there yet, and that lends itself to very easy political attacks on this issue. What I typically have done when I've run campaigns on issues and as a candidate myself, you try to address the areas of weakness pretty darn quickly. You get out there and you say things, for example, like in the Kansas City budget. Maybe occasionally there are people who consider themselves police supporters who don't support me. Well, I say, let's do a 30% pay raise for the police. What does that do? It not only, I think, is a good thing to do and is good policy, but it usually gets those people to say, okay, this guy is making some sense. Maybe I'll like other things about the budget. At a time that we're trying to get the people of Jackson County to fork over, I think, a good amount of money over the generations ahead, I would have tried to at least address a lot of those issues that may be flanks for attack that has not been done. And I think that leads to the challenges we see now.
So what about, you, I think, are saying what a lot of people are alluding to here, which is the Royals and maybe the teams in general, they're not really being very transparent, and they've left a lot of questions on the table. And it sounds to me and looks to me like they're basically trying to use their media blitz on TV and radio to get this thing passed without answering some of the questions that a lot of folks, rightfully so, are asking. Do you think that transparency has been lacking from these teams?
I think that there could certainly be more clarity in terms of impacts on small business and, frankly, any number of promises of the Chiefs keeping practice facility in Jackson County, Kansas City, what will be some of the long-term benefits, and really what is even kind of some of the financial breakdown. I think Clark Hunt addressed a little bit of that during his press conference, but I always think more could be done. I always think transparency can be a good thing. Look, Pete, and I'll just put myself out there and be too honest. I was a guy who was arrested while running for mayor, right? I mean, interesting things happen in life. What you need to do is actually always be clear and transparent about what happens, what we're doing, what our plan is, all of that. And I think that's actually what a lot of people in Jackson County and really in the entire region on this issue are going to be asking for. Hey, what are we asking about? And I think people are always fair if you lay out all your cards on the table. In the event you don't, that's when we see ballot issues that sometimes are unsuccessful. I haven't seen any during my time as mayor in the city of Kansas City. We've certainly seen them in Jackson County. And so I would hope that perhaps the teams heed some of that warning and we see more of that clarity over the weeks ahead.
Speaking of clarity, someone called in this morning and asked this, and I said I would ask you, if the stadium does go downtown, all the new, ways the roads need to be rebuilt, on-ramps, off-ramps, will that be covered and paid for by the city, or is that a state thing? Who pays for that part of it?
That's a very good question. Right now, you would think that it'd be covered. To the extent that there are any changes on 670 or 71 Highway, that would have to be a state change. And so certainly it's state property, so you would think that'd be state payment unless they can get somebody else to pay for it. If there are reroutings of streets, if there are new traffic lights, anything of that sort, that would probably be responsibility of the city unless both the city and the state, just say, go pound sand and figure it out yourself. I shared this with some Crossroads business owners maybe a week and a half ago, that there is a lot still to be determined after this vote happens, assuming it's a yes. So, that can go one of two ways. You can vote for it. You can vote yes and say, I still trust Quinton Lucas and the council and the state of Missouri to protect us against, some of the costs that may ensue, or you could vote no and say, I don't trust them to do that. There's a lot left, ranging from the conversation about eminent domain, which I hope they never get to to, street vacations, anything under the sun. And so I'm with you in the sense of saying, sharing is caring, like we would learn in a kid's book.
Oh, what do you think of then Jeff Rowe, Axiom? They're kind of running point for the two teams. And the two teams, they have not wanted to do a lot of media on this. It sounds like they're maybe hoping Jeff Rowe and Axiom carry them across the finish line. As a guy who knows, the political consulting world very well, is that smart strategy?
As a guy who had $200,000 spent against me in the aforementioned mayoral campaign, not from Jeff Rowe, and was subject to any number of nasty attacks, I don't get into which political consultant is doing what. I think they're all sometimes similar, and they're all trying to win. So, I'm not in the politics of that. In terms of the strategy itself, certainly I know the Royals have hired, I'd imagine, very good people who have vastly more polling information than you or I. I do find it interesting that most of us have not seen any polling information out on the public side, which you can read one way or the other. But look, the way I would run a campaign is I'd be out there. I would say, this makes sense. I would have more trusted voices out there. I did see George Brett interviewed yesterday on the news, but, I think those are the sorts of things that I would be doing and making clear why it makes sense. I think downtown baseball is important for the future of this region. I actually think retaining both teams, and I've said this on your show before, retaining both teams at this cost is actually vastly better than almost any comparable city is doing, right? You have cities that are spending double for one team. Nashville's $1.5 billion just for the football team. St. Louis was throwing out $700 million and still lost on just the football team. So I think this is a believe it or not, a good value with a sales tax renewal in essence. That being said, I would be shouting it from the rooftops, and I would be saying, yeah, we're happy to answer your questions about small businesses or infrastructure, and I do think some of that is wanting.
Mayor Quinton Lucas on KCMO. We appreciate the time, Mr. Mayor. Thanks so much, and enjoy reading Goodnight Moon tonight to your young child. We appreciate your time.
Hey, absolutely. Y'all take care. Have a great weekend.
All right. That is Quinton Lucas on KCMO Talk Radio.